going to go again at this motor. The plan right now is the motor's pretty much long blocked. We've installed a few things off camera, but there's a camshaft position sensor up under this right side head. There's a crankshaft position sensor on the block on the right side of the motor at the back. Those have been installed. They're single bolt installed. And then we've also installed the valve covers temporary. We installed the oil filler spout here on the right side head. And we've also installed the oil filter shroud, 2 bolts on the oil filter shroud, pretty straightforward. And then the oil pressure sending unit, we've installed that as well. So where we are now is we want to install the timing system cover, and then once the timing system cover is installed, we can basically finish out the front of the motor outside the car, which is we're going to install the idler, tensioner idler pulley system, install the water pump. We'll install the water pump as part of the timing plate installation, as some of the water pump bolts also hold the timing plate on. And when we're trying to get that good seal with our RTV, we want to be sure that we have tension all around the timing plate cover, so we want to install the water pump at the same time. And we'll also install the front seal, install the thermostat housing, and then we'll install the harmonic balancer. So basically when we're done with this segment, we should have a full front end on the motor with the exception of the accessory and accessory drive system like the AC, power steering, alternator, those things. So we'll install those once we're in the car with its in. But anyway, we'll try to get that knocked out in this video and see where we land. Right now I've got this timing plate cover up with just a single bolt, this long bolt that goes in the front, which is one of your lift points for the motor, amongst other things. And so I had just dry fit it and got it up here, got all my bolts ready and clean. And so first things first, we need to install a gasket here, here, and here. They're right here. New gasketing for these water jackets. 1, 2, 3. And then we'll go with a bead of silicone all the way around. Now, I personally like to put a little silicone on these gaskets, just because you just absolutely do not want a water leak into your whole system. So again, I'm not talking excessive, I'm talking about just a little RTV to help seal these gaskets. So we'll get on with the RTV and we'll get right back with you. We had just a little bit of trouble there. The gasket set that I got was apparently the wrong size. So we ended up with the new gasket set. You see the blue rings there. Everything's RTV seal around. Put a little bit of RTV on the block just around the water jackets. Again, the seals are intended to seal without that kind of support, but for me, comfort level, I'd rather have a little bit of RTV, clean up quite quickly if we had to replace this in the future. So don't think it's a big problem. So we're going to stick it on the block, and we're going to align the dowels. Get this thing where I can get a hold of it properly. And we're going to align these dowels and get it on the dowels first, if we can. And we're going to stick in this center main bolt. Get it to go. And we're just going to run it up real quick, but not tighten it. And we're going to start all the bolts, and then we'll tighten them all together. These bolts, in general, 20 foot-pounds. We'll double check all that here in a few minutes. Now there's a series of short and long bolts. Short bolts go in those locations. It's pretty easy to tell actually where you're closer to the block. And then of course the longer ones go in those locations further away from the block. So that's why I dry fit everything, particularly parts like this. Just because it's too easy to get something little off, get your bolt locations off, things like that. And then once we get these Once we get these started, we're going to go ahead and also install the water pump. Water pump goes without RTV gasket on the back side. So we're going to go ahead and place it. And again, we're going to tighten all this simultaneously. Make sure gasket doesn't jump out on you. Make sure it's proper seated. Looks good. Checking which bolts go where now. Had this all down a while ago. Rotate one. So when you're trying to figure out which is which on the water pump, those bolts that are closest to the edge, you can actually look behind and see generally that there's a hole in the block. Those bolts closest to the edge are the longer bolts. This is one of them. And it should become pretty obvious pretty quickly which ones are which. Then you have some that are shorter bolts that engage threads actually in the face of the water pump of the timing plate. Like I said, once you get going, it'll become pretty obvious what's going on. A whole mess of bolts, that's for sure. Seem to be missing one bolt. Right off. Okay. So we seem to be missing one bolt, but we're going to move on, and the reason is because that one bolt is a short bolt that goes on the water pump right here, and it's not going to change our world right now. We certainly need to locate it and get it on there, but it's not part of the timing plate seal, the timing cover seal. It will affect the seal of the water pump, obviously, so we'll get that resolved here pretty quick. So now we've gone around a little bit already, but we're just going to go around and buzz all these down. And ultimately set torque on them. But for now, let's just get them all going. This looks like it's a mounting bolt. It's not. This is a accessory type mounting bolt. I think it's for air conditioner. Don't recall. Also, there's a bracket that goes here. I'm trying to remember exactly which bolt that comes off of. But in this area as part of your accessory mounting system. I'm not putting it in right now. I'm not too worried about it. Whenever this thing is fully cured, then I can take out that bolt, whichever bolt it is, put it in, and we'll do that when we get it in the car. Not too worried about that one. So they're all of them are buzzed down. So let's check what our torque spec is. So we're going to begin our torquing. There's a sequence of torquing. I just ran them up earlier. Wasn't too worried about sequence on that. We're going to go ahead and implement the torquing sequence, and these bolts are put at 43 foot-pounds. And one thing I don't like to do is mess around long before I get these bolts torqued, just because we want this thing to seat well, and want this thing to seat good and get that RTV to spread and seal before it cures. For this one is the big one up here. It's a 15 millimeters, so I have to switch out sockets there. That's number 3. Number 4 down by the thermostat. Okay, then number 5. Sorry, my printer laid down on me, so I couldn't print my torque sheet, which I normally have. So we'll look at. That's number 6. And number 7. where's number 8? There we go. Number 8. Number 9. 10. This one. So this is number 14. So basically, we're going to go around, repeat, and make sure that we're seated, and then we'll worry about finishing up the water pump. Alright, well, I did manage to find that lost bolt. We're going to go ahead and tighten up the water pump system. Water pump bolts get 40 foot-pounds. Obviously, some of these have already been tightened because some of them are part of the timing cover installation. It doesn't hurt to go buy them at 40 foot-pounds and find out they're already tight. It's no big deal. So we're just going to walk around the water pump, tightening everything 40 foot-pounds. There's no specified pattern. And since we've already tightened up the timing cover bolts, not too worried about pattern. This one should be tight. It is, so we'll walk around one more time, make sure everything's nice and tight. Alright, so at 40 foot-pounds, we are set on the timing cover, on the water pump. Next thing we're going to put on is the idler tensioner pulley system. You'll note here there's a bolt where this thing's supposed to mount. Luckily also there's a corresponding notch here in the idler tensioner system. And so all we need to do is align that bolt to that notch and then find the center hole, and we should be good to go. So that's a 13 millimeter bolt. That bolt ultimately will go to 30 foot-pounds of torque. So that's on, and we'll set our torque wrench. 30 pounds. And we'll run it up. Alright, so the idler and tensioner are on. Now we're going to install the front seal. Front seal goes here around the crankshaft and looks a lot like that. Now, I don't have any fancy tools to drive this on, but I do have a 2-inch pipe cap, 2-inch PVC pipe cap. Fits around this thing nicely and allows us to drive it in. It's the same size as was on the 4.7 that I rebuilt in an earlier video series. So if we can get it started without cocking it, then we can take it on in. Main thing you want to look for is evenness, obviously. You want it to go in nice and even all the way around. Just adjust your blows to those areas that are shallower, haven't been driven in as far. We're getting pretty even there. And we're seated. And you'll feel it, this seat's against the aluminum ring in the back there. And so that's installed. Next thing we're going to install is the thermostat housing. Get that in, and then we're going to put the harmonic balancer on this guy. Let's get ready to do that. Alright, so let's get started on the thermostat and the thermostat housing. Thermostat, always remember, there's a long end and a short end. The long end goes into the block. So that's how it's going to be installed. It can go in backwards, so please pay attention that the short end goes in, the long end goes into the block. So there's a gasket on the thermostat there, goes into the thermostat housing where it seats. There's a little notch here, a notch in the gasket, or a tab on the gasket. So you just align that, and then it should go in quite easily. And then put on the thermostat housing. Question, does it go this way, or does it go this way? Well, the way you know is by looking in the book. So, stick it on here temporarily. We're going to go make sure we know which way it goes. Pretty sure it goes this way. The reason I can tell you is because the belt's going to go around this way. So if the hose is pointing out this side, it would be in line. It would be in the way of the belt, the harmonic balancer, all those good things. So we'll go ahead and get it installed. I torque this until it feels just right. Nothing fancy here. You just want that gasket to seat against the timing chain cover here. And this is a number 8, it looks like. Yes, it's a number 8 bolts, 8 millimeter. Okay, so the thermostat is installed in the lower water nozzle. It's aluminum, plastic. Please be careful. No fun to get it wrong. Now we're going to install the harmonic balancer. Harmonic balancer is keyed, as is the crankshaft here. So we'll just determine our key location, get it close, and there it is. Now, in all their wisdom, Chrysler requires a special tool to install this thing. What we've got is a large bolt, and what we do is we just thread the large bolt in, and we allow it to push the harmonic balancer on far enough that we can get good thread engagement on the primary bolt. Let me show you. To use the primary bolt, you barely have any thread coverage. So whenever you, well actually this one went in further than most. We're not going to worry about it. This one went in quite a ways. If it doesn't go in very far and you just have a couple of threads holding, you try to push the harmonic balancer on with this bolt, then you're going to potentially strip the threads out of the crane. That's pretty terminal. So what you can do is you can get a bolt of the same dimension. I don't recall the dimension right now. I got a rather long one here. Got actually a small PVC pipe sleeve on here, and then I have basically a piece of wood that goes on here 3 or 4 inches thick, and it'll push against the interface of the harmonic balancer, and then you can screw it on. Sometimes they will slide on nice. I've also seen people who'll put them in an oven at a low, modest temperature, and get them to swell a little bit, so they will push on far enough that this bolt will engage. Be real careful if you try that technique. The harmonic balancer has a rubber sleeve so that it can slip if it needs to, and you can melt that rubber sleeve out of there if you put it at a high temperature in the oven. You don't want to do that. So like I said, ours is engaged quite well, as it turns out, and so we're going to run this thing on up, and then we will not torque it until we have the motor off the stand, and we get the flex plate on. We use the flex plate to hold the motor still to torque this bolt, but we will at least get it installed. If you do decide to use the main bolt, put this on. Go nice and easy. Make sure everything's moving forward. Don't let this thing get real tight and cause you damage to your threads. This one's going in steady and smooth, so we feel pretty good about it. installation, so there's no problem with this install. So this depends to some extent how lucky you get, if it pushes up or if it doesn't push up. I'm noticing here my top dead center marks very close to top dead center on the block, as it should be, because we haven't rotated the timing system significantly since we installed it, and it was a top dead center to begin with. It's a couple of degrees off top dead center, past top dead center, but it's all good. Okay, we're made up for now at least. We can even turn the engine over now. Flywheel and all. And it's turned over quite nice. Again, it's about monitoring resistance on the drive line. Very important throughout this process of rebuilding. I was kind of curious to see where top dead center is. Here it is. And so we're happy. You can even see the chains turn through the port here on the head, which I haven't covered yet. So front end's pretty much together, and next thing we're going to do, exhaust manifolds.